Welcome to Karma Chronicles. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin.
I was halfway through reviewing market comps when I heard Evan's voice echoing down the hall. Loud, fake confident, already laughing at his own joke before anyone else could. Typical. He swept into the office like he owned the place. And honestly, he kind of did. Not officially. But in my dad's eyes, Evan had been running the show since he could talk. My name's Sarah. I'm 34. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and I've been working in real estate development for almost 12 years now. 8 of them here at our family's company, Rockland Group. It's supposed to be family run, but that's never really included me, not when it mattered. I built my career consulting on high-value land deals. Commercial stuff, the kind of projects that take months of due diligence and negotiation. But around here, I'm the backup. The quiet support. The one they call when they need a spreadsheet cleaned up or someone to double-check the zoning stuff. Dad always said he was proud I got a degree in urban planning, but every time I brought an idea to the table, he'd say things like, "Let's let Evan take the lead on this one," or, "You're good at the details, Sarah. Just help him polish the pitch." Evan, he barely graduated with a business degree from some party school in California. Doesn't matter. He's got the charm, the handshake, the legacy name. We've got this big board meeting coming up tomorrow. Evan's going to pitch a downtown redevelopment project, one I sourced, researched, and practically gift-wrapped for him. I made the connection with the city council, I found the investors, I laid out the logistics. And yet, he'll be the one standing at the head of the table, clicker in hand, smiling like he personally discovered Phoenix. At lunch, Mom stopped by with her usual fake cheer. "You ready for tomorrow?" she asked, sipping her green juice like she hadn't spent the last decade blindly praising Evan's every half-baked idea. "I'm prepared," I said, not looking up from my laptop. "Oh, good. Evan's been working so hard. Your father's really excited to hear his pitch." Of course he is. What she didn't ask. What I'd been working on. What I was bringing to the table. Same as always. Evan came into my office later that afternoon, leaned against my desk like he had something serious to say. "You're coming to the meeting, right?" he asked like it was optional. "Yeah, I'll be there." "Cool, just, try not to slow things down with too many questions. We've got a tight timeline, and the board wants confidence." I stared at him. Confidence or lies? He just smirked. Same thing sometimes. Then he walked out. I didn't say a word. I just closed my laptop and started printing out every doc he planned to present, because I knew exactly what he was about to take credit for. The boardroom smelled like burnt coffee and too much cologne. Evan stood at the head of the table, sleeves rolled, jacket off, acting like he was the second coming of Steve Jobs. He hit the remote, and the first slide popped up. Rockland Midtown Revival. My title, my project, my damn blueprint. He didn't even flinch. "So, this development," he said, pacing slow and confident like he'd rehearsed in front of a mirror all week, "is about transforming unused downtown space into a modern mixed-use hub. Retail, residential, restaurant, full spectrum." He clicked again. My site map came up, my market study. He just talked over it like it was his. No credit, no mention of who brokered the city relationship, nothing. Dad nodded, arms crossed, proud as hell. That's the kind of big-picture thinking we need? Mom, sitting next to him in a tight blazer and pearls like she was running for office, leaned over and whispered something to him. Both smiled. I could guess. Probably something like, "Evan's finally ready to lead." Evan kept going, throwing out buzzwords. Synergy, visibility, market reinvention. It sounded slick, but it was shallow. No mention of the actual zoning changes we were still waiting on. No talk of contingency funds. No breakdown of early-phase risk. He clicked to the pro forma slide. I leaned in. This was where the cracks would show. "The investment return projection," he said, "sits comfortably at 17% by year 3, assuming full lease-up by Q2 of year 2. And with anchor retail already interested," I raised my hand. Calm, direct. No drama. He stopped mid-sentence. "Yeah. I noticed you're projecting lease-up by Q2 of year 2, but the downtown retail market's been trending flat for 18 months. What's your risk buffer if that timeline drags?" Silence. Evan stared at me like I'd just farted in church. "We've got strong momentum. Some of us don't like to overthink the negatives before we even start." I didn't blink. "It's not negative, it's basic planning. If anchor leases delay, everything downstream shifts." He cut me off, smirking at the board. Sarah's got a good heart, but sometimes she gets caught in the weeds. Big picture. This is a momentum play, and we're not building it around fear. Laughter? Not much, but enough to sting. Dad chuckled. That's why Evan's up there and not buried in spreadsheets. The board members shifted in their seats. A couple of them glanced at me, then away. No one said a word. That hit harder than the sarcasm. Not one person stood up. Not even Martin, who I'd worked with on the zoning packet. I swallowed my pride and leaned back. Screw it. Let the pitch finish. Evan wrapped up with some slick slide about elevating the urban experience and closed his laptop like he'd just solved world hunger. Well done, Dad said, clapping once. Vision like that. That's leadership. We move forward with this. Everyone nodded. A few muttered things like impressive and ambitious. No one looked at me. I stood up to leave, not saying a word. As I walked out, I heard Mom's voice behind me. I think this is Evan's moment, Tom. My hands curled into fists. My jaw locked so tight it hurt. I didn't slam the door. I wanted to, but I didn't. I just walked back to my office, shut the door, and pulled up the investment breakdown again. Because something in those numbers didn't feel right. I stared at the spreadsheet for a long time, the lines blurring into one another. The numbers were clean, but my gut wasn't buying it. The room felt too quiet, like the air had gone stale after that boardroom circus. A knock came on my door. You free. It was Lena. She'd been with Rockland longer than I had. Smart, steady, the kind of person who saw everything and said nothing unless it mattered. Yeah, I said, pushing back from my desk. Come in. She closed the door behind her and sat down. You okay? That meeting looked rough. I let out a dry laugh. Rough? More like predictable. Lena gave a little nod, her eyes soft. He took your pitch again, didn't he? Completely. Down to the last graphic. Didn't even flinch when he claimed it was his. That's messed up, she said quietly. You've been carrying the weight on these projects for years, Sarah. Everyone knows it. Do they? Because it sure doesn't feel like anyone does. I crossed my arms, still fuming. They treat me like the intern who fetches coffee, not the consultant who brings in millions in contracts. Lena sighed. You know how it works here. Tom raised Evan to be the heir, and you were supposed to make it all run smoothly from the background. That's how your dad sees it. I looked down at my desk, fingers tracing the edge of a file folder. Background, that's a nice word for invisible. Lena leaned forward. You're not invisible, Sarah. You're just outnumbered. I laughed, bitter this time. Feels like the same thing. She shook her head. You've built a hell of a reputation outside this office. I've seen your independent deals, the redevelopment you did in Flagstaff, the housing complex in Tucson. You made those happen without any of their help. That's power, whether they admit it or not. Her words hit something deep in me, something I'd been too tired to recognize. I'd spent so long chasing validation from my father, trying to prove I was worth listening to, that I never stopped to see how much I'd already accomplished without him. I don't know why I keep doing this, I said. Every time I bring an idea, Dad finds a way to hand it to Evan. And Evan, he doesn't even have the decency to feel guilty about it. Because he's never had to earn anything, Lena said. When someone's been told they're a leader their whole life, they start believing it, even when they're standing on someone else's work. I leaned back in my chair, my pulse slowing, but the anger staying hot. I built this project from the ground up. I negotiated the land options, ran the feasibility, secured preliminary investors. And he walks in and takes the credit like it's his birthright. It's because he thinks it is, Lena said. And your dad feeds that. I stared at the window, watching the sunlight reflect off the parking lot. My reflection looked harder than I remembered. It's not just about the pitch. It's about years of this. Every promotion, every deal, every single win, he's been handed what I earned. Lena didn't interrupt. She just let me talk. And the worst part, I said, my voice low, I let them. I let them treat me like some sidekick because I thought one day they'd finally see me as their equal. Lena gave a half smile. You're past equal, Sarah. You're the one keeping this company from collapsing under Evan's ego. I let that sit for a second. She was right. Beneath all the frustration, something stronger started building. Resolve. Maybe I didn't have their approval, but I had something better. I had the facts, the work, the proof. Lena, I said, standing up, I'm done letting them take credit for my work. I'm going to find out exactly how deep this goes. Every dollar, every signature, every lie. She raised an eyebrow. You sure you want to open that door? I grabbed the project file from my desk. Oh, I'm not just opening it. I'm taking it off its hinges. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, I had 3 empty coffee cups on my desk and a legal pad covered in names, dates, dollar amounts, and question marks. If Evan wanted to play CEO, fine. But I was done being the idiot in the background, signing checks without knowing where they went. First stop was the shared drive. Evan never locked anything. He was too cocky for passwords. He thought control meant being loud in meetings, not actually managing the details. I pulled the investor file, then the disbursement schedule, then the capital funding ledger. My name popped up on line item 17, private capital contribution, S. Rockland Trust. I froze. I knew I'd parked money in a holding account for the company's next project. I did that every quarter to keep things flexible, but no one told me that cash had already been committed, especially not to this project. I scrolled further. $800,000. My name was tied to it, used as a foundation block for external investor confidence. I stood up, heart pounding. No way. That money wasn't a gift. It was earmarked for a different build I'd been planning personally, a long-term rental concept in Mesa. It sure as hell wasn't supposed to be lumped into some half-baked downtown vanity play. I grabbed the printouts and stormed down to archives, financial logs, emails, internal memos. I wanted a full paper trail. It took hours, but by 4 o'clock, I found the smoking gun. A PDF labeled Stakeholder Presentation, Confidential. In it, Evan outlined projected returns based on full tenant occupancy within 12 months. And right there, under Key Internal Investors, my name again, used to suggest I was a lead strategic partner in the build. No permission, no disclosure. And the rent projections, pure fantasy. I needed confirmation, so I called Ben. He'd been my lawyer for 6 years, helped me set up my LLC and negotiate my independent contracts. Smart, calm, and no tolerance for bullshit. Ben, I need you to look at some documents. Something's not right with the Rockland Midtown project. Okay, he said. You want to come by? I'll be there in 20. I showed up with a flash drive and a file folder stuffed to the brim. Ben scanned it all while I paced. Let me get this straight, he said after 10 minutes. They committed your trust fund capital to a high-risk project, presented you as a core investor to outsiders, and falsified the performance outlook without your consent? Correct. He exhaled, slow. Jesus, Sarah, this could be major. If this tanks and you're listed as the strategic backer, you're exposed. I didn't even know I was involved until yesterday. And your name's in investor packets. They're leveraging your reputation and your money to make this look stable. My jaw tightened. And they've got zero risk planning, zero buffer. Evan just told the board we're tracking for 17% return by year 3. He's not even accounting for inflation or lease lags. Ben looked at me over his glasses. If this collapses, you're looking at financial damage and legal liability, unless you document the hell out of this now and act fast. I sat down, trying to steady my hands. They've made me a silent cosigner on a sinking ship. More like they built the ship on your dock and forgot to tell you. Something broke loose inside me. Not panic, not fear. Rage. Pure, steady rage. Ben, I said, voice low, I want every option. If I pull my investment, how fast can we do it? Legally, I mean? I don't want any holes they can crawl through. He gave a tight nod. I'll need a couple days to review the trust structure and fund allocations. But if everything checks out, we can move fast. I stood. Do it and keep this quiet. As I left his office, my phone buzzed. Evan. I let it ring. He had no idea what was coming. I walked straight past Evan's call and into another meeting with Dad and him. They'd thrown it on my calendar last minute. Like always, no agenda, just one of their classic backroom updates where I was supposed to smile and nod while they bulldozed over me. Dad was already sitting at the table when I walked in, flipping through a printout of the investor deck. Evan was leaned back in his chair like the golden boy he thought he was. You've seen the latest numbers, Dad asked, not even looking up. I've seen more than the numbers, I said, pulling out a chair. Evan raised an eyebrow, fake casual. Meaning what? I dropped the packet from Ben onto the table. Meaning I know you used my trust capital to anchor the Midtown project. Without my permission. Dad blinked. Evan's mouth opened, but nothing came out. You knew that fund was separate, I continued, keeping my tone steady. It wasn't earmarked for this. And now it's being used as leverage to land outside investors under false financial assumptions. Dad finally spoke. Hold on. That fund's always been flexible. We've moved capital around before. Not like this, I snapped. Not without telling me. Not with my name all over the investor deck, implying I'm a strategic partner. That's fraud, Tom. I never called him Tom, but I wanted him to hear it, feel it. Evan leaned forward, hands up. Okay, maybe we stretch things a little, but it's all about optics. No one's getting hurt. The deal's strong. It's built on lies, I cut in, and you're gambling with my reputation like it's a poker chip. Dad slammed the folder shut. You're overreacting. I stood. No, I'm done reacting. I'm acting now. That afternoon, I called Ben. Move forward, I said. Pull the investment, draft the paperwork. I want this airtight, final, no loopholes. He was quiet for a second. Once this hits, Sarah, there's no going back. This'll set off a bomb in your family. I'm not the one who lit the fuse. All right, he said. We'll file the withdrawal formally. But I need a reason for the record. Put it in writing. Unstable project leadership, misrepresentation of investor identity, risk of financial mismanagement. Cite Evan Rockland directly. I want every word in black and white. You want to delay the transfer until after the next investor meeting? No, I said. Do it before. You realize that'll stall the disbursement. Exactly. I knew what that meant. The project was scheduled for fund release that Friday, roughly $1.7 million in capital planned to hit escrow. Without my share anchoring the deal, the whole thing would jam. Evan wouldn't be able to fake his way around that. Ben moved fast. Within 24 hours, I had the documents in front of me, legal withdrawal letter, timeline breakdown, notification clauses. I read every line 3 times. Then I signed it. The moment my pen hit the page, I felt it. This sharp, electric clarity. No second guessing, no guilt. Just heat in my chest and a voice in my head that finally said, enough. I scanned the doc and hit send. Ben messaged me 30 minutes later. Filed, irreversible as of noon tomorrow. I stared at the screen. My family would find out by the end of the week. Evan would blow up. Dad would demand a fix. Let them. They'd played with my money, my name, my work, for the last damn time. They thought I was just the girl in the corner making the decks and checking numbers. Now they'd learn who actually held the cards. By noon the next day, the emails started coming in. The escrow transfer flagged as incomplete. The external investors were notified. The board was scrambling to understand what went wrong. And then my phone exploded. Evan called first 6 times in a row. I let them ring out. 7th one, I picked up. What the hell did you do? He snapped before I even said hello. Pulled my investment, I said, cool and flat. Legally, officially, permanently? You can't do that. I just did. He was full panic now. You just sabotaged the entire deal. Do you have any idea what you've done to our timeline? To our credibility? To your fantasy projections? Yeah, I do. You could have talked to me first. I tried, I said. You laughed in my face. So did Dad. Remember. He went quiet for a beat, then lowered his voice like he was trying to reel me in. This is going to destroy everything. The board's going to freak. Investors are already nervous. If they find out you backed out, they already know. Silence. I told them myself, I added. And I told them why. You told, he swore loudly. Sarah, you seriously just nuked your own family's company over a bruised ego. I almost laughed. This isn't ego. This is accountability. Look it up sometime. I hung up before he could say another word. 10 minutes later, Dad called. I answered. You need to reverse it, he said. No greeting, just straight command. Get your attorney to walk it back. Immediately. Not happening. His voice turned sharp. You're being ridiculous. You have no idea how many people are affected by this project. Actually, I do, I said, because I did the research. I built the market reports, and I saw the numbers Evan cooked to make this look profitable. Sarah, no, I snapped. You don't get to interrupt me right now. Not after what you let him do. You greenlit him using my money without asking me. You let him plaster my name on a lie, and you expected me to smile and nod like always. You could have come to me directly. I did, for years. He was quiet. You think I'm doing this out of spite? I said. No, I'm doing this because I'm done funding your failures. Evan isn't ready to lead anything, and I'm not financing his learning curve. You're blowing this out of proportion. You're acting emotional, not rational. That hit something deep. That tone, that dismissal. Same one I grew up hearing. No, I said slowly. You just don't like it when I make a move you can't control. He started to argue again, but I cut him off. I've documented everything. If this project falls apart, it won't be because of me. It'll be because your golden boy built a skyscraper on sand. You've just made enemies, Sarah. Real ones. I'm not scared of them. Or you. I hung up. By the end of the day, it wasn't just internal chaos. Word had gotten out. One of the investors leaked an email thread to a local real estate blog. They'd highlighted my name, the withdrawal, and the unstable projections behind the project. The blog didn't say it directly, but the implication was there. Rockland Group was in trouble. Lena stopped by my office after 5. You okay? I looked up from my laptop. My inbox was a disaster, but I was calm. Yeah. Evan's been pacing the parking lot like a lunatic. Good. She smirked a little. You really did it. I did. You're gonna be hated for a while? Yeah, I said. But I'm finally not disappearing so they can keep pretending he knows what he's doing. She nodded. About time. I sat back in my chair and stared at the mess I'd just lit on fire. For once, I didn't care how uncomfortable it made them. They wanted me silent. I gave them a statement instead. The emergency board meeting was called for 8 a.m. sharp. No breakfast, no coffee, no small talk. Just red faces, tension in the air, and a stack of folders in my arms. I walked into the conference room and didn't wait to be invited to the table. Evan was already there, pacing in front of the screen like he was preparing for court. Dad sat at the head of the table, arms crossed, looking like he hadn't slept in 2 days. The rest of the board trickled in, some avoiding my eyes, a couple nodding quietly. No one smiled. I sat down, laid the folders in front of me, and waited. Tom started it. We all know why we're here. The Midtown development is in jeopardy. Our internal funding collapsed due to Sarah's last-minute withdrawal, and our credibility has taken a hit with our outside investors. He looked right at me like he expected me to flinch. I didn't. This project was a cornerstone in our Q4 strategy, he continued. We need to figure out how to stabilize the situation and reassure the market. Quickly. Evan jumped in like the trained dog he was. Look, the headlines are bad, but the fundamentals are still solid. We're talking about a temporary cash flow gap. We've managed worse. I cleared my throat. You didn't manage anything. That's the problem. The room went quiet. Evan glanced at Dad, then at me. Okay, here we go again. I pulled the first document from the folder and slid copies across the table. This is the real projection sheet, not the fantasy you sold to investors. The rental timeline was off by at least 12 months, and your 17% return, only possible if we hit full occupancy by Q2 of year 2, which is statistically impossible in this market. He opened his mouth, but I raised a hand. I'm not finished. I passed out the next file. Here's documentation showing misuse of my private capital. You listed me as a strategic partner without my consent. You tied my name to your pitch, and that's why I pulled out, because it was a lie. A few board members flipped pages. I saw one of them, Martin, lean in and squint, brow furrowed. I had my lawyer verify everything, I continued, and if the board would like copies of the findings, I'll send them today. Evan was fuming. You're just bitter. You've always wanted to tear me down. I looked right at him. No, Evan, I wanted to build something real. You just kept climbing on my back to do it. Tom slammed his hand on the table. This isn't helping. Sarah, this level of emotional outburst isn't professional. Don't you dare call this emotional, I snapped. This is facts. This is oversight. This is me protecting what's left of my reputation after you both dragged it into the mud for your fake success story. Martin finally spoke. To be fair, some of us had concerns. Numbers didn't add up, but we figured it was just presentation issues. I didn't realize the risk exposure was this deep. Another board member, Karen, nodded. Same. I assumed Sarah had signed off on it. If I'd known she wasn't involved directly, I would have flagged it sooner. Evan was starting to sweat. We can still save this. We just need a new investor, some bridge funding. I cut him off. You've had chances, you lied. You covered things up, and you put the company in this position. Tom tried again. So what do you want, Sarah? You want control? Is that what this is about? I met his stare. No, I want truth. Competence, a company that doesn't operate on delusion and ego. And if that means stepping up, then yeah, I'll do it, because somebody has to. The board went quiet. I could see the shift in the room, small, but real. The power dynamic had cracked. After the meeting, Martin pulled me aside. You're not wrong. We've been coasting on the Rockland name too long. You might be the only one thinking straight around here. Karen nodded as she passed. If you're planning next steps, let us know. I nodded. I will. Because now they were finally listening. The next morning, Evan didn't show up to the office. First time in years. No warning, no excuse. Just a quiet desk and an empty parking space. Lena came by my door around 10. You see this? She said, holding up her phone. There's chatter on the RE forums. Someone leaked a summary of your presentation to the board. I took the phone. The headline read, Rockland Group faces internal power struggle over Midtown collapse. Beneath it, a breakdown of inflated numbers, misused investments, and questions about Evan's fitness to lead. Good. Let them ask. By the end of the week, I'd been looped into every major project review. Karen started CCing me on executive decisions. Martin asked if I'd take a look at a stalled acquisition he'd been sitting on for months. No one said it out loud, but I knew what was happening. They were shifting, slowly but definitely. Not because I demanded it, but because I earned it. Meanwhile, Evan was falling apart. He came in 2 days later looking like hell. No shave, wrinkled shirt, snapping at the front desk girl over a missing file. The swagger was gone. No more backpats or boardroom smirks. He barely made eye contact with anyone. Dad still defended him, of course. Told the board he was overworked. Processing stress just needs time. Time didn't change numbers or lies. The board wanted stability now, and Evan reeked of chaos. I stayed late that Friday night, cleaning up a proposal for a smaller but clean redevelopment in Tempe. I had just closed my laptop when my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. Sarah Rockland speaking. Hi, Sarah. This is Greg Hanley. I'm with Hanover Equity out of Denver. I heard your name through one of our real estate contacts in Arizona. You've made some waves. I paused. Good ones, I hope. He chuckled. Depends who you ask. But from what I've read, you understand risk better than most developers twice your age. We're looking for new partners, strategic ones, not the usual cowboy types. You interested in talking? My chest tightened, but in a good way. I leaned back in my chair. I'm listening. He laid out a quick overview. Hanover had just exited 2 projects and wanted to reinvest in mid-sized urban builds with actual oversight. They weren't interested in egos or vision guys. They were looking for people like me. I'm not looking to jump ship completely, I said, but I am looking to steer something that isn't circling the drain. Sounds like we're aligned, he said. Let's set up a call next week. We hung up and I just sat there staring at my screen, stunned. It was happening. People outside this broken bubble finally saw me for what I actually brought to the table, not Evan's backup, not Tom's daughter, me. And yeah, I felt a flicker of guilt. What I'd done had blown a hole through the family business. I wasn't stupid. I knew the trust with my dad and brother was fractured for good. But that guilt didn't outweigh the truth. They built their success on my silence. I just decided to stop letting them. Now I had board members watching my lead, a potential investor in my corner, and leverage I never had before. It was a strange mix, freedom and fallout. But I knew one thing for sure. I was just getting started. The following week, Evan resigned. No press release, no send-off. Just an email to the board saying he was stepping away to focus on other ventures. Why? Coward's way out. The board didn't ask questions. No one tried to stop him. Karen and Martin called me into a private meeting the next day. They didn't waste time. We want you to take point on the company's strategic direction, Karen said, effective immediately. Martin nodded. It's time Rockland stops running on last names and starts running on skill? I didn't even blink. I accept. And just like that, the shift was real. No parade, no applause, just work. I got back into the numbers, gutted the projects with weak foundations, and started drafting a new structure for the company. One that didn't revolve around family ties, but capability. Results. Dad stopped by my office that Thursday. First time since the boardroom showdown. He looked smaller somehow, like the weight of the fallout had finally sunk in. He stood in the doorway, quiet. He's not coming back, he said. I know. He hesitated. Evan wasn't ready. I see that now. I didn't respond. I should have listened to you sooner. I looked up from my desk. Yeah, you should have. He gave a slow nod. I underestimated you. That's on me. There was no apology, just that half-hearted attempt to rewrite history like he hadn't spent a decade brushing me off. But I didn't need it. Not anymore. That all? I asked. He hesitated, then turned and walked away. I exhaled and went back to work. By Friday, the restructure plan was approved. We cut 2 bloated projects and shifted resources toward 3 smaller, smarter developments, including the Tempe plan I'd written up on my own. Lena brought me a fresh coffee and set it on my desk. You good? Yeah, I said, smiling. Better than good. Because for the first time, I wasn't waiting for permission. I wasn't playing defense or patching up someone else's screw-ups. I was building something that was mine,